What's up, everybody? And it's your Thursday edition of Pelicans Daily. I'm your host, David Grubb, editor in chief of thebirdrights.com. And your New Orleans Pelicans are coming off a road loss to the Los Angeles Clippers on Wednesday night. They fell to the Clippers 114 to 98. A tough way to kind of get this road trip going. The Pelicans will stay in LA for another game on Friday against the Los Angeles Lakers. Um, Obviously, the Pelicans are very undermanned without Zion Williamson, without CJ McCollum, who were shut down earlier in the week due to their injuries. CJ with a foot injury, Zion with the back injury. So the Pelicans basically playing with the second unit. I mean, now the starters are basically gone. Your starting lineup from opening night, when you think about it, that's completely gone. Whether you're talking about Daniel Tice, gone, DeJounte Murray, sidelined, Herb Jones, sidelined, CJ McCollum, sidelined, Brandon Ingram, traded. So all those folks are gone. Trey Murphy, sidelined. You look at the Pelicans' top six from opening night. If you want to count Zion Williamson, who was absent due to illness, everybody's gone, and for one reason or another. So you're just watching the Pelicans' backups and reserves, and various rookies get an opportunity to play down the stretch. These now 6 games remaining on the schedule after the loss on Wednesday. Um, what was good about the performance? The Pelicans were not horrible offensively. They shot the ball 50% from the floor. They were horrible from beyond the 3-point line, just 4 of 22 from 3-point range. 4 of 22 from 3-point range. And 2 of those makes came from Kelly Olynyk. So the rest of your shooting, that shows, again, you talk about what are the important things to learn at this stage of the year. What you're learning is you still don't have enough shooting. I mean, even if you add in Trey Murphy and CJ McCollum, Pelicans don't shoot the ball well enough. Jose Alvarado was 0 for 5 from 3-point range. Antonio Reeves had a rare poor shooting performance from 3-point range, going 1 for 4. Still finished 5 for 10. We'll talk about the rookies a little bit later. But nobody shot the ball well, and you didn't have anybody who had an incentive to shoot as far as a volume 3-point shooter. Jamal Cain is not a volume 3-point shooter. JRE, Keon Brooks, Carlo Makovich, Elfrid Payton, certainly not. Lester Quinones barely getting any run. So where are your 3-pointers going to come from? Not Bruce Brown. Jose Alvarado took 5, probably still not enough. Again, the equalizer when it comes to for bad teams playing against good teams is taking more threes. You don't take fewer threes. The Clippers are an exceptional defensive team, one of the best in the NBA, but you have to stay in the game. The Clippers, for their part, made 3 fewer shots than the Pelicans, took 9 fewer shots than the Pelicans, but made 9 more threes. That's a plus 27 advantage in a game that you lost by 16. That's a plus 27 advantage in a game you lost by 16. Until they get that part fixed, and it's not about having just great shooters. Because remember, percentage is not as big of an indicator as number of makes and number of attempts. Percentage is important. You can't be out here shooting 53s and making 30%. But up until a certain amount, you've got to keep your attempts at a certain level. And the Pelicans don't meet the minimum threshold. Don't worry about the maximum. The Pelicans missed the minimum threshold on attempted 3-pointers. 22 attempts is not enough. 4 makes is certainly not enough. And then you see the difference for the Pelicans and not having the gravity that having a player like Zion Williamson affords you. Pelicans didn't get to the free throw line. Only 11 free throw attempts, 8 makes. Uh, the only nobody Jose Alvarado's the only one with a double double, and we'll talk about him in just a second too. But the Pelicans overall just didn't get the kind of performance that they wanted. Five players in double figures. Olenek had 12, Bruce Brown 16, Antonio Reeves 11, Jamal Cain came off the bench and gave the Pelicans 10. Sorry, Karl Makovich with 10 as well. But overall, a very forgettable performance by the New Orleans Pelicans. Kawhi Leonard, as he has in the two games since he came back against the Pelicans, played very well. 28 points for Kawhi. Very efficient shooting, 11 of 18. The Clippers did the job with their starters. Zubac, again, another double double with 17 points, 10 rebounds for him. James Harden, double double, 21 points, 10 rebounds. Norman Powell did not shoot it well. Chris Dunn shot it well enough in his minutes. But overall, the Pelicans fall to 21 and 55. Just 7 road wins this season, 7 and 31 on the road after posting the best road record in franchise history. It's just, there's so many things to compare last season to this season that just show you how far the Pelicans have fallen. At 21 and 55 with 6 games left in the season, the Pelicans are on pace for one of the worst, obviously, seasons in franchise history, one of the 5 worst in franchise history. Um, how have they done in the seasons following? Like, you have to start thinking about these things historically. Um, how have they done? How do other teams typically do after seasons like this? And I think the comparison has been primarily with the Memphis Grizzlies last season, who had a lot of injuries and bounced back to some degree this season. Last season, the Memphis Grizzlies had 27 wins. This season, they have 44 wins. That's plus 17 so far. Um, it's a good bounce back. The Pistons, of course, the biggest bounce back in the NBA this season, 14 wins last season, 42 wins in 24-25. That is a increase of 28 wins. So let's say, just to put that for the Pelicans at 21 wins right now. I don't think a 28-win improvement for next year, going back to 49, is probable. Um, but if you finish between a 17 and 28 game increase, which would be somewhere around 22 wins, somewhere around 22 wins, that would put the Pelicans around 43 wins for next season, which would not be amazing. It would not be world shattering. It wouldn't put them in the top of the West. But if you could get back to that, that would be some great progress. And I think that can be done. I think it can be done. And we have all off season to talk about how that can be done, but I think it can be done. Um, if we look historically at the Pelicans franchise, the Hornets slash Pelicans franchise, how have they followed up the worst seasons in franchise history? And the only cases, I mean, let's look at the 4 previous cases before that, and all of them pretty much fall into line. Um, the 05 the 04-05 season is the gold standard for bad seasons in franchise history. 18 wins that year for the Pelicans. Um, the next season, they followed that up by going 38 and 44, so a 20 win increase. That was also with the drafting of Chris Paul. Um, Basically, next season is like getting 2 number 1 picks back. If you're the Pelicans, you're thinking about the number 1 pick that you're going to get in the first round this year, and you're adding Zion Williamson back to the fold. I mean, it's kind of like getting several back, considering the amount of games that CJ McCollum played, the amount of games DeJounte Murray played, the amount of games Herb Jones, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But, again, that's why I think 20 wins is reasonable to jump back and improve. The other season on the list, the 2011 2012, with 2 other seasons hit right back to back. The 2011-2012 season, when the Pelicans were 21 and 45 in a strike shortened campaign, a lockout shortened season. And then 2012-13, the Pelicans only increased their win total by 6, going to 27 wins, 27 and 55. Actually, a lower win percentage because 6 more wins, but 10 more losses. So they were actually worse the next season, by and large. So I think that the Pelicans will be better next season. That's a guarantee. Just because of health, they can't be any worse. How much better is up to a number of factors. But that has been the history of the franchise as far as bouncing back from these losing seasons. We talk about Jose Alvarado for a little bit, and let's go back to him. Jose with 17 points and 10 assists in 27 minutes. And that 25-minute mark, and we talked about this before with Jose, it seems to be the cutoff point for his level of effectiveness um, as far as in the NBA goes. Jose is one of those players that is a fantastic backup. And there's nothing wrong with that. Fantastic backup. Because all the things that you want to see out of a bench performer, Jose checks that box. Bench performer plays with energy and a high level of competition. Check. Bench performer wins his minutes. Check. Typically, Jose, when he's on the court coming in as a reserve, he wins his minutes. Impacts the offense positively, yes. Impacts the defense positively, yes. Respected in the locker room, yes. Respected by opponents, yes. Coachable, yes. Affordable, yes. So to me, I think Jose sometimes the negative for him is I think when people overestimate his standing. As long as you have the proper evaluation of Jose Alvarado, you'll be okay. If you're a fan and you love him just because you love him, that's fine. You have every right to do that. But if you're evaluating basketball, the thing with Jose is you cannot make him more than what he is, but you also can't make him less than what he is. And I think that we are caught too much in the arguments about Jose that people give him way too much credit on one end, or they give him far too little credit. When we talk about too much credit, I think the problem there is that folks view Jose. That's when they start viewing Jose as a guy who should start. You know, you've seen Pelican fans at different times over the years say they need to start Jose. Jose would give them a boost. Jose would give them a boost. You could start Jose for a half. You know, you come out of the first half, you're not happy with how your guards are playing. You say, "Well, look, hey, we're gonna give Jose the show if y'all don't do your job." Okay, I can see that. But against the best teams in the NBA, it's just been a consistent thing. His effectiveness is limited by multiple factors. Number one, his size. It's always going to be a disadvantage in a game that rewards height for you to be exceptionally small unless you do exceptionally good at a number of areas. Jose is has become a much better shooter. Jose has become a better um, initiator of the offense, as evidenced by his assist to turnover ratio. One of the best in the league. I think he's still top four, top five in the league, if not higher than that. That is still predicated on him by who he's playing with. He's at his best with really good teammates, obviously. Who isn't? Every player is better with better teammates. But he can still play with mixed max lineups. But when the lineup gets too bad, then the heavy lifting becomes on Jose. And that's the issue that you saw against the Clippers. When the lineup around him, when you put Kelly Olynyk, Bruce Brown, Yves Missi, and Antonio Reeves as starters around Jose, that's too much heavy lifting for him. You're asking him to do too much. You're asking him to create too many shots for too many people. And that's just not his skill set. And then when you combine him with Elfrid Payton, Elfrid being a non-shooter, Elfrid basically being unable or unwilling to shoot the ball, any jump shots. He's not taking them. He's not taking them. He doesn't want to take them. He's not taking them. Took 0 threes. Elfrid played 21 minutes, took 0 threes against the Clippers. That's just who he is. So if those are your 2 point guards, you have both of them. You have one who's undersized and is not great as a starter. The other, you cannot play him for extended minutes because he won't shoot the basketball. And when he's bottled up by bigger physical guards, like he was by the Clippers, Elfrid only had 4 assists, and he had 4 turnovers, then he becomes ineffective. And if he's ineffective and you have no one else to go to, your offense is in trouble. And that's what happened for the Pelicans. They had no one else to go to run this offense. And so I think with Jose, I think it's always going to be Jose is his value to the Pelicans. Yes, I think it is higher to the Pelicans than it is to other teams. I think Jose, the intangibles actually do matter when it comes to Jose because when you have a player like Zion Williamson who does rely on vibes in a lot of ways, when you have that kind of player, you have to do some things to make the locker room work for him. And Jose makes the locker room work for him. Jose motivates Zion. Jose encourages Zion. Jose gets the energy. Jose also has, like when you talk about this team, we also say it needs jerks from time to time. Jose is that to opposing teams. They don't like him. They respect him because they know he's playing hard. They know he's competing. He's not dirty. But they don't like him because he's annoying. He's like that little brother who you're playing in the front yard at the driveway. You know, he's just there pestering you, bothering you. And so, again, that type of play, the type of energy that it takes for him to play at a high level, is hard to maintain. So when you ask him to do that with the starters, again, I think it's just harder for him to maintain a high level of play. Though I would caution people again, do not underestimate Jose Alvarado's value to the Pelicans. Speaking of Elfrid Payton, he's going to stick around a little while longer. On Wednesday, it was announced that Elfrid had signed a second 10-day contract with the Pelicans that will keep him on the roster till April the 12th as the season comes to an end. So the Pelicans, obviously, with the shorthanded roster, they just understand that they need more ball handling. And people could say they waited too long to keep Elfrid. Um, and again, I tell you, do you want to tank or not? Because I find it interesting that the same people who complain about the Pelicans not signing Elfrid Payton earlier out of training camp or whatever, they're also the ones that say the Pelicans need to be tanking. And if they want to be tanking, then you don't want a veteran point guard who can make your offense better around. They're at the point now where they have to have somebody, again, or it doesn't look like an NBA product. When you're losing 114 to 98 to the Clippers, and you have a quarter where you can only score 16 points, and you barely get up 25 points in the other in two of your three of your four quarters, then your offense is really bad. The Pelicans, have had. Let's just talk about the bad offense for a minute and how important it is an orchestrator to have it. Pelicans again scored 98 points against the Clippers. They are 1-16 this season. 1-16 this season when being held under 100 points. Remember we talked about earlier about comparing things to last season? Let's look at last season. Last season, the Pelicans only played 9 games all year where they scored less than 100 points, and they were 3-6 in those games. So this year you're 1-16, that's 17 games, and you may finish. You still have 6 games to go, so you may have a couple more on the docket. But you were only 3-6 last season. That's you add up the last 2 seasons. The Pelicans only had 13 games where they scored under 100 points. The last 2 seasons, 13 games with fewer than 100 points. This season, 17. 17. That's an indictment of the roster. That's an indictment of the coaching staff because it shouldn't have fallen off this badly. Even in Willie's first season with the Pelicans were 2-14 in games where they were under 100 points. So again, fewer games, 16 total. We're at 17 now. Fewer games in a 36-win season with fewer than 100 points. More wins, 2-14 compared to 1-16. Overall, that brings Willie Green's record to a grand total of 6-43 when the Pelicans score under 100 points. 6-43, almost 50 games, and almost a 12%, just over a 12% winning percentage in those games. So good job there. All right, before we go today, we're going to look at the rookies one more time. Again, I have said that the most important part of the season, the rest of the way, is determining the value of these rookies. Overall, they did not play their best against the Clippers, a quality team. It's going to be harder against a quality team. We start with Yves Missi, 27 minutes for Yves, which is right around where he's been. 6 points, on 3 of 8 shooting, a struggle against the bigger, stronger Zubac inside. 12 rebounds, only 2 on the offensive glass, where you usually expect Eves to give you a little more effort. 3 blocks, so solid performance there. And only a -5 for a night, again, where you lost by 16. For the starters, Eves wasn't the worst. That was Antonio Reeves, the other rookie in the starting lineup. Again, a pretty decent shooting performance. 11 points on 10 shots, only 1 of 4 from 3-point range. Did not turn the ball over much, only 1 turnover for him. So not bad there. Didn't commit a bunch of fouls in 33 minutes, but no steals, 1 assist, 0 rebounds. Has to contribute in other ways and was unable to do that against a physical Clippers backcourt. Who are you playing against primarily as a starter? You're playing against Norman Powell. You're playing against Chris Dunn, a very good defender. You're playing against James Harden, a very physical and savvy guard. So a tough assignment there for Antonio Reeves. When you look at the bench, Keon Brooks had his worst game of his recent stretch, 22 minutes, 6 points, 3 for 7 from the field, only 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, no blocks, 1 turnover, 2 fouls, -15 while he was on the floor. And then finally, Carlo. Carlo did not play well either. Um, we've talked about the foul problems with Carlo, and he had it again last night. 5 personal fouls in 18 minutes, only 10 points. Shot it well, 5 of 8 shooting as he does. 0 of 1 from 3-point range, only 1 free throw attempt, and he missed that. 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, no blocks for Carlo. He has to control himself. He's got to find a way to play basketball under control. You want him to be excited. You want him to be enthusiastic. You want him to try really hard. But Carlo is making it difficult to keep himself on the floor because of his decision making. It's bad. He is a poor decision maker defensively. He is always out of position. He jumps at the first sign of movement. He fouls too easily and too quickly, mostly because it's his fault. Usually he's fouling because he's made a mistake. And he's got to get better at that because it doesn't matter what your talent is offensively if you can't stay on the floor because you're consistently making bad decisions. Again, overall, I would say the rookie class has been a net positive for the Pelicans this season. They have done their jobs when asked to and have exceeded their expectations. If you're talking about Yves Missi at being drafted at 21 overall, he's exceeded expectations. No one expected him to play much at all this season. He started more than 60 games. So, you've gotten value there. Antonio Reeves was a second-round pick. He's starting games for you now. Value. Keon Brooks, you brought him up. G League. He started a game for you. That's value. You've gotten value. Yes, you are forced into these situations by circumstance, but you at least felt comfortable enough starting them over other players, including veterans. Same with Carlo Makovic. He has started a couple games this season. And he wasn't drafted this year. He's had a couple years to kind of marinate in the G League and overseas, but now you're starting to see that okay, he's figured some things out. There are ways that he can be a contributor in the NBA. Not a rotation player yet, but he can be a contributor in the NBA if he continues to develop. If he develops at a really good rate, maybe he can become a contributor. But right now, a rotational player. But right now, he is not that. But still, overall, with your rookies, you have a net positive. So you have to give those players the credit there and the individual development work that they've done with their coaches. Clearly, there's some work being done, and it's paying off for the New Orleans Pelicans in that regard. Does it play off in the long term? We'll find out starting this summer. But for the time being, only 6 games remaining on the schedule. The next one up, Friday against the Los Angeles Lakers. Never a dull moment when the Pelicans face the Lakers, but this will be their first time facing the real new look Lakers with Luka Doncic and LeBron James together on the court at the same time. I hate the night games though on the West Coast. I hate 9:30 starts, but we'll do it again on Friday for the Pelicans and the Lakers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and share the Pelicans Daily podcast with your friends and fellow Pelicans fans. I'm your host, David Grubb, again, editor-in-chief of the birdrights.com. So check me out there if you'd like. Also, follow me on social media at DM Grubb. And until the next time, y'all be good.